My fingers were shaking so hard I could barely hold onto the windowsill. The cold October glass burned against my forehead while I watched the only two people I had left in the world destroy everything I believed in. There they were, Derek, my husband of 3 years, and my mother, Carol, on the couch we bought together last Christmas. Her manicured fingers were tangled in his dark hair. His hand was sliding up the back of her silk blouse exactly the way he used to touch me. I wanted to scream, but the sound died in my throat when I heard what came next. "We can't wait any longer," Carol whispered, voice low and urgent. "The insurance adjuster called today. They're releasing the funds next week if there are no more complications." Derek pulled back just enough to look at her. "She's still weak. Broken ribs. Concussion. The works. Perfect cover. We make it look like the internal bleeding started again or she got dizzy and fell down those stairs. Quick. Clean. And no one asks questions. $500,000. That was the number that kept repeating in my head like a broken record. The policy Derek convinced me to double 6 months ago, just in case something happened to one of us. The one he said was responsible planning for our future. I slid down the siding until I was sitting in the damp grass. Broken ribs screaming with every breath. 3 days ago, I'd almost died in Derek's truck on Maple Hill Road when the brakes went out. The police called it mechanical failure on an older vehicle. Derek had cried real tears at my hospital bedside. Carol had brought homemade chicken soup and held my hand while telling me how terrified she'd been. They had tried to kill me once. They were planning to finish the job tonight. The morning had started so normally.
Dr.
Patel came into my room at 8:17 a.m. with discharge papers. "Insurance authorization got moved up," he said, looking apologetic. "We need the bed for a trauma case. Your scans are stable. Go home. Rest. No driving. No stairs if you can help it." I was so happy. I pictured Derek's face when I walked through the door early. I imagined him scooping me up carefully, carrying me to bed, making me his famous grilled cheese the way he always did when I was sick. I called him twice from the hospital. Straight to voicemail both times. That should have been my first clue. The taxi dropped me off at the end of our cul-de-sac in suburban Naperville. I saw Carol's silver Lexus parked 3 houses down, half hidden behind the neighbor's oak. My stomach twisted, but I told myself she was probably just checking on the house, watering plants, being the thoughtful mother she'd always pretended to be. I let myself in through the back door as quietly as I could, planning to surprise them. The house smelled like Derek's cologne and my mother's lavender hand cream, the 2 scents I used to love more than anything. I was halfway down the hall when I heard the low murmur of voices coming from the living room. I froze. Then I crept to the window, and the nightmare began. I stood there for what felt like hours, listening to them laugh about how gullible I was, how I'd practically handed them the murder weapon by trusting them with my passwords, my accounts, my life. Derek kept calling me poor little Lauren, so desperate to be loved. Carol kept saying she'll never see it coming. She never has. When their voices moved toward the front door, I panicked and stumbled backward into the shadows of the side yard. My vision tunneled. The pain meds were wearing off, and every breath felt like knives. But I couldn't run.
Not yet.
I needed proof. I needed the world to believe me when I said my own husband and mother had tried to murder me. I met Derek on a rainy Tuesday in October, 3.5 years ago, at the little independent bookstore cafe on Washington Street. I was 27, managing the coffee counter between shifts at the hospital where I worked as a radiology tech. He walked in soaked, shaking rain from his hair, and ordered a large black coffee and a blueberry muffin, the same thing every day for 2 weeks straight. He was the kind of handsome that made you forget your own name for a second. Tall, broad shoulders from years on construction sites, quiet confidence, And these green eyes that looked at you like you were the only person in the room. He asked me out on the 14th day. Our first date was at the little Italian place downtown where the owner still knew everyone's name. He listened when I talked about my dad walking out when I was 12, about how my mother had become overprotective to the point of suffocating, about wanting to go back to school for nursing one day. When I finally brought him home to meet Carol, she was ice cold. "He's too smooth," she warned me later. "Men like that always have an angle." But Derek was patient. He fixed her leaky faucet without being asked. He brought her flowers. He listened to her stories about the old days without ever looking bored. 6 months later, Carol was calling him, the son I never had, and telling me I'd finally found a good one. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. The way he always asked about my work schedule. The way he encouraged me to add him as beneficiary on everything so it's simple if anything ever happens. The way Carol started having new clothes, a fresh paint job on her house, a newer car, things she couldn't afford on her receptionist salary. I thought we were building a family. I thought I was lucky. The day of the accident was supposed to be ordinary. Derek had an early meeting at a job site in Aurora. He kissed me longer than usual that morning and said, "Take my truck."
Babe.
"Your Civic's been making that grinding noise again." "I'll worry all day if you're in that thing." I argued for maybe 30 seconds, then gave in because he looked so genuinely concerned. Maple Hill Road was beautiful that morning, crimson and gold leaves. Low sun cutting through the trees. I was halfway down the steep curve when I pressed the brake pedal for the first time. Nothing happened. I pumped it again. The pedal went straight to the floor. The truck picked up speed. I remember screaming, steering wheel shaking in my hands, trees blurring past. The sickening moment when I realized I was going to die. I managed to swerve into the ditch instead of the concrete barrier. The truck rolled twice. The last thing I heard was breaking glass and my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. When I woke up in the ICU, Derek was holding my hand, eyes red, whispering, "Thank God you're alive." Carol was in the chair beside him, tears streaming down her face, saying, "I can't lose you too. Baby, you're all I have." I believed them. God help me. I believed every word. Now I knew the truth. While I was fighting for my life in that hospital bed, they were texting each other about how to finish the job. While Derek sat beside me pretending to cry, he was calculating how soon he could collect. While Carol held my hand and called me her only child, she was practicing my signature on the forged will they'd already prepared. I crouched outside my own house listening to them refine the plan. Carol wanted to make it look like a fall down the stairs, had trauma, neck broken, consistent with post-concussion dizziness. Derek wanted to increase my pain meds and let the internal bleeding do the work. They argued the details like they were planning a vacation. Every memory from the last year twisted into something ugly. The weekend, Derek helped Carol move furniture and stayed over because it got late. The night I came home early from a shift and found them laughing in the kitchen over a bottle of wine. The way they'd both encouraged me to write down all my passwords just in case. I forced myself to move. Pain or no pain, I had to get inside. I used the spare key under the fake rock by the back garden. Derek had oiled the hinges last week so they wouldn't squeak and wake you. Of course he had. I crept up the back stairs to our bedroom while they were still talking downstairs. His phone was on the nightstand charging. Not locked, because he had nothing to hide from me. I opened it with shaking hands. 14 months of messages. The early ones were flirty, then explicit, then cold and calculating. Photos of our staircase. Photos of my medical chart someone had snuck in the hospital. Screenshots of the insurance policy. Practice sheets of my signature in my mother's handwriting, hundreds of them. I forwarded everything to my own phone. Then I opened the fireproof box in the closet and found the new will. The unauthorized beneficiary changes. The bank forms. My mother had been forging my signature for months. I was taking pictures when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Derek's voice. I'm just going to check the bedroom. Make sure everything's ready for tonight. I had seconds. I slipped out onto the tiny balcony off our room and pressed myself against the wall. October wind cutting through my thin hospital shirt. Through the glass, I watched Derek walk in, looking around like he was measuring distances for a perfect staging. He tilted his head, listening. Did you hear something? My heart stopped. Then the siren started. I had called 911 for Mrs. Chen's house 20 minutes earlier. The sweet elderly neighbor let me use her phone after I told her I'd locked myself out, and it was an emergency. I sent her the photos and screenshots and begged her to stay inside. She squeezed my hand and said, "You poor girl.
Go.
I'll pray for you." Now the street was filled with flashing lights. Derek spun away from the balcony door. Carol burst into the bedroom, face white. Police cars multiple. What the hell is happening? They started panicking, deleting messages, running to the closet to hide the documents. It was too late. I heard the front door crash open. Naperville police. Search warrant. I stepped through the balcony door just as Officer Ramirez appeared in the bedroom doorway with 3 other officers. Derek's mouth fell open. Carol actually stumbled backward. "Lauren," Derek stammered. "You're supposed to be in the hospital." "I was released early," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "Lucky for me. Unlucky for you." Carol tried the mother act. "Sweetheart, you look terrible. Come sit down." I heard everything. I cut her off. The breaks. The forged will. The $500,000. The affair. All of it. Derek took one step toward me, and for a split second I saw something feral in his eyes. Then handcuffs clicked. "Derek Hayes and Carol Bennett. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, and forgery." Carol immediately started screaming that it was all Derek's idea, that he manipulated her. Derek tried to say I was delusional from the head injury. Neither of them got very far. The trial lasted 11 weeks. The text messages were read in open court. The forged documents were entered into evidence. A forensic mechanic testified that the brake lines on Derek's truck had been cut cleanly, no corrosion. No wear. Just deliberate sabotage. The insurance company's fraud investigator explained how Derek had been shopping policies for months. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. They each got 25 years. No parole for at least 18. I sold the house the week after sentencing. I moved to a little apartment in Colorado with mountains outside my window and no one who knew my name. I still wake up some nights hearing their voices planning how to kill me. I still flinch when someone I love touches my hair the way Derek used to. But I'm healing. Therapy 3 times a week. Long walks. Learning to trust my own instincts again. The physical scars from the crash faded months ago. The ones inside are taking longer. But they're fading too. Sometimes I think about the version of me who believed she had the perfect husband and the perfect mother. That girl died on Maple Hill Road. The woman who survived is someone new, someone who knows that love without boundaries is just another word for danger. I still don't know exactly when Carol and Derek started sleeping together. I don't know how long they planned my death. I don't need to know anymore. What I do know is this: the people closest to you can be the most dangerous. But the truth, no matter how ugly, is always stronger than any lie they can build. And sometimes, just sometimes, surviving is the loudest revenge of all.